Old Testament, God builds a nation. Genesis 15, 1 through 7, 17, 15 through 22, 18, 10 through 15, and 21, verses 1 through 7. One evening, the sun sank from the sky and the colors of orange and red faded to black. In the dark, God spoke to Abraham, "Look up to the heavens. Count the stars if you can. I promise you will have as many children as there are stars in the sky." Abraham believed the Lord. The Lord said, "I will establish a covenant between us. I will be your God. And until the end of time, you and your children's children will be my people. This land of Canaan, where you now live as an outsider, will be yours. I will give it to you and all the families after you. Forever and ever, I will be their God." Even though Abraham believed God, years passed and Abraham and Sarah grew very, very old. They still did not have the family they yearned for. One day the Lord appeared to Abraham and said, "When I return to you next year, you and Sarah will have a son." Sarah laughed when she heard the news. "How can an old woman have a baby?" she asked. God asked Abraham, "Why does Sarah laugh? Is anything too hard for me to do?" Sure enough, the Lord did as he promised. 1 year later, Abraham and Sarah had a beautiful baby boy. They named him Isaac. Abraham raised his son and his household to love the Lord. He taught them what was right and just in the eyes of God. Eventually, all the nations of the earth would be blessed because of Abraham's devotion to God. The jump to Jesus. Abraham's family grew and grew. Isaac's children had children, and they had children who had more children. The family grew into a nation called Israel. Every day, God watched over the community of Israel as he worked to bring his people back to him. After many, many years, another baby was born. That baby's name was Jesus. He was the biggest blessing of all and the very best part of God's plan. Jesus came to make the relationship between God and his people better. But even though Jesus was everything the people hoped for, many of them did not believe in him. Now, do you think God gave up on his plan? No! After Jesus rose from the dead and went back to heaven, God continued to build his relationship with his people through a new community called the church. The story of how the church was born is one of the most exciting stories you will ever read. New Testament. The Holy Spirit comes to establish the church. Acts 2, 1 through 41. After Jesus had risen, he knew that soon he would return to heaven. He told his disciples, "Stay together in the city. Don't leave until God sends you a special gift." One morning, the disciples were together to celebrate the Feast of Pentecost. All of a sudden, a great rush of wind swirled around the room. Bright bursts of color that looked like flames appeared and settled on each person's head. The disciples fell to their knees, praising God. Then they began to speak in many different languages. Jewish people from all over the world were gathered together in Jerusalem. Each heard the disciples speaking to them in their own language. They wondered, "What does this mean? How do these local people speak languages from other places in the world?" Peter, one of the disciples, stood up and shouted, "This means that God has sent us the gift of His Spirit. His Spirit lives in us so we can do unusual things. With the Spirit's power, we can speak in other languages. We can preach about God. We can perform miracles." Peter explained, "God sent Jesus to earth as a man to serve the people. You heard Jesus teach. You saw his miracles. Then you put Jesus to death with the help of evil people. But that wasn't the end. God brought Jesus back to life. Death didn't stop Jesus. He came alive again. We have seen him alive, and we saw him return to heaven to be with God. Jesus promised not to forget us, so he sent the Holy Spirit to be with us. You can be sure of this: God made Jesus both Lord and Messiah." The people were very upset by what Peter said. They remembered that Jesus told wonderful stories and did fantastic miracles, but they also remembered how they cheered when he died. Now they understood who Jesus really was, the Son of God. "What shall we do?" they cried.